president of Caye Bank down in Belize. What I do is I travel a fair amount throughout the United States, Canada, Caribbean, a little bit in Europe to speak to people like yourselves who may be interested in banking offshore, investing offshore. So that's what I do. I've been doing this now for 33 years. Worked for half a dozen banks around the world, and for the last 7 years in Belize. Why Belize? Well, today it is the best offshore banking country in the world. I wouldn't have said that 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the country was a dump. It was a banking dump, so was Panama, so was Jersey, so was Cyprus. Just about every crook and his dog had money in those countries. All that came to an end in 1999. 1999 was the key year for offshore banking. There was a huge conference in New York, of all places, on offshore banking. I was there too, representing a European bank. And a lot of things changed at that conference. One of them was, for example, I'll just give you one simple example. They did away with numbered accounts. Up to 1999, you were able to walk into a bank, especially in Europe, put some cash on the counter, they gave you a bank book, and off you disappeared in the sunset. Never give your name, address, nothing. That's over. Doesn't matter where you go in the world, numbered accounts are gone. So that was just one thing that changed. So since then, since 1999, we are all whiter than white. We all dance to the same music, and if you step out of line, well, someone will come along and close you down quickly. Okay, so that's how that works. Before I get going on banking, I would like to talk about Belize itself, the country itself. It's not going to take long. It's only going to be, what, 5 to 7 minutes or so. A little bit of history, politics, economy, and then we get going on banking. And before I get going on Belize, I'd like to clarify something here, just in case you're going through any mental gymnastics. Trying to guess the accent, it's German. So let's carry on. Belize, where is Belize? Often people ask me that. I hear this question often at seminars. Well, it's not that hard to guess. It's not all that far away from here on a global basis. It is wedged between two countries and an ocean. It is wedged between Guatemala, Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea. It has nothing to do with the Caribbeans, nothing. They're somewhere else. They're roughly 1,600 miles to the east. It is located on mainland America on the east side, on the Yucatan Peninsula, so that's where it is. The entire region was discovered, obviously, by the Spaniards, late 1400s, early 1500s. Later on, the English came, booted out the Spaniards. War was not necessary. They just packed their bags and left. And once the English had it, they formed a colony, and they called it British Honduras. And that's what we remember from high school, right? British Honduras. It was called British Honduras until 1981. In 81, the Brits gave the country independence, and before they left, they did three things, very important things that more or less set the tone for this brand new nation. And the first thing they did, they looked around the world and tried to find a suitable constitution for this brand new country. And during their research, they discovered that the Canadian constitution fits the country well. Modified it slightly, installed it there. And today, when you look at Belize politically anyway, you're basically looking at a miniature Canada. It functions just like Canada. So what does that mean? Well, it means boring politics. That's what it means. How much of Canadian politics do you hear outside of Canada? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, right? So they like their peace, they like their freedom, they like their easygoing, laid-back life they have there, and the same situation in Belize. So that's the first thing. That was the first thing they did. The second thing the Brits did before they left, they created a brand new banking law. And they included bank secrecy. Why bank secrecy? Well, they simply wanted to create another tax haven for the wealthy Brits. That's it. That's the only answer I have for that. And the third one, the Defense Act. It's quite interesting to read through all that. It says that if the country ever gets attacked by a foreign nation, not that that's going to happen next week, they all get along very well down there in that whole region, and they all work towards common goals and all this cute stuff. But let's just say they do get attacked by a foreign nation. Great Britain must defend it, and that is why you see occasionally some British soldiers running around there. They have bases there. They do jungle training there and shooting guns and whatever stupid things soldiers do. Generally, those guys are drunk. There is a reason for that. They could be based in Afghanistan, but they're not. They're based in Paradise. So they're having a wonderful time there. I would probably do the same thing if I was in their boots. So those three things more or less set the tone for this brand new nation. Economically, the country is doing quite well. The growth rate over the last 6 years on an annual basis, roughly 5%. That's quite high for a Western nation. Inflation rate, 1.8%. So it went up by one tick since last year. If you think back of your high school days and you took any economics classes, there was probably a ratio you had to remember because it was on a test. I remember I had that ratio on my test. I also remember I failed that test. Anyway, the ratio indicates the economic health of any nation. And what is that ratio? Well, it's a 5% growth and a 1.5% inflation rate. So they've been very close to those two numbers for the last few years. The three main industries in Belize, obviously finance, that's number one. A lot of banks, trust companies, headquarters of mutual funds companies. Number two, ecotourism. They're more or less copying Panama and Costa Rica, so they make a lot of money doing all that. And the third one, oil. They discovered oil off the coast of Belize, down in the southern part. They've been drilling now for 3 years. They drill on land. They go in an angle under the water. That's how they get the oil out. No platforms permitted. Why? Because they saw the disaster in the States. So those three industries are the main industries. Obviously, there are some spin-off industries, but those are the main ones. So there you are, Belize, in a nutshell. Not all that difficult to get there from North America. You don't need to spend 18, 20 hours on an airplane, and after 18, 20 hours of flying, you fall out of the airplane half dead, none of that. Okay, you get yourself to Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, Miami, Charlotte. There are direct flights into Belize City out of those cities. Belize City is the city you arrive at when you fly to Belize. It's not the capital city. The capital city is Belmopan, but Belize City is the commercial center. That city is a horrible, horrible dump of a city. I keep saying that one day I will create a coffee table book of the ugliest cities in the world. Belize City will be centerfold. The reason for that is there was never any urban planning going into that city, so it's a thrown together mess. So what most people do, they fly into Belize City, climb on a smaller plane and go out to some of the most beautiful areas in the world, or they rent a car and do that. Okay, so there you are. That's Belize. Banking. Whenever you think of offshore banking, there's probably a nation that comes to your mind right away, and that's Switzerland, right? Isn't that the first place somehow that enters your mind? Well, folks, there are a lot of countries that do that kind of work. Yes, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, Malta, Gibraltar, Estonia, Hungary. Come over on this side of the water, Bahamas, Cayman Islands, Antigua, Belize, Panama. Go out in the Pacific, Nauru, Vanuatu, Cook Islands, Kiribati. Go into Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, blah, 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 blah. The list is endless. And it's almost growing on a daily basis. Most people think that offshore banking countries are disappearing. They're actually decreasing in size. No, they're not. They're increasing. More and more people, more and more countries jump on the bandwagon. Why? It's a lucrative business to be in. Why wouldn't you want to be in it? Okay? It's just that the traditional ones are drying up. And we've heard this already a few times this morning. Yes, Switzerland is drying up. Liechtenstein is drying up. Luxembourg, they dried up about 10 years ago. Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man. Why are they going away slowly? Well, there's a reason for it. They're under pressure. They are being pushed around by the bullies. Who are the bullies? Yes, the United States, the EU, and the UK. They are the ones that push everyone around and tell everyone how to do business and how to conduct their life. So, out of all those nations that do offshore banking, there's only a handful that really stick out. And why do they stick out? Well, they're for two reasons. They stick out for two reasons only. One, they all have bank secrecy or some form of bank secrecy. And the second one, a high liquidity requirement set by their own government. So let's deal with bank secrecy. What in the world is that? Well, it's easy to answer. It's a two-way communication. Bank, client, client, bank. That's it. That's where it ends. No third-party information given to anyone. And if we hand over, in Belize we have bank secrecy, if we hand over third-party information to a lawyer, estranged wife, estranged husband, estranged business partner, well then, the one who hands it over and gets caught goes to jail. It's policed. In Belize, bank secrecy is policed. If you get caught breaking bank secrecy, 18 months in jail. 18 months in a Belizean jail, folks, I wish you all the best. Okay, they don't feed you there. So, that's it. There's nothing else to say to that. Why do countries have bank secrecy? What is the reason for it? There's nothing special about it. It's a European idea. The first time it was ever mentioned was in 1732 in France, a long time ago. It's a European idea. The core idea behind bank secrecy is privacy. If you have any European friends or clients, ask them what to do with their money. What are you going to get for an answer? It's none of your business. Europeans don't talk about money. As a matter of fact, they don't talk about three things. So if you have any European friends, don't go there. Money, religion, and politics. Those three things caused a lot of trouble over the last 2,000 years in Europe. We don't go there anymore. Leave it alone. Okay? Enough is enough. So, that's bank secrecy. Number two, I mentioned it already, liquidity. For the last 30 years, every single time I got up in front of people and I talked about liquidity, people went to sleep. Why? Well, it can be fairly technical if you really dig into it. Number one. Number two, it's not sexy, it's boring. And after a while, I noticed that people fall asleep. Or they start doodling on the piece of paper in front of them. Or they run off to the toilet, and then they come back, oh God, he's still talking about liquidity. And then something happened. 2008. 2008 was quite a year for the financial industry. We were almost financially died. Most people don't even know how close we came. And this brings me now to the Bank for International Settlements located in Basel, Switzerland. They set standards for all banks around the world, including the liquidity requirement. And they say that all banks around the world should have a liquidity of 8%. Now they're talking about 9, 10, even 11. Nothing is engraved in stone yet. It's still 8%. Now, do any of you know what the average liquidity was of the 120,000 banks around the world? What was the average liquidity a month before the meltdown in 2008? Do any of you know? It was not bad. It was 6.1%. It changes every month. The number changes every month. We bankers follow that number like hawks. Well, I do anyway. 6.1%. But then a lot of bad things happened quickly during a short period of time, and the bottom fell out. Now, a year later, 2009, November 2009, what was the average liquidity of the 120,000 banks around the world? Do any of you know? It was 0.7%, the lowest in history. It wasn't even that low during the 30s. And that's why I'm saying we came this close. This close, okay? If anything bad would have happened during that time, anything bad, what bad? Well, jets crashing into high-rise buildings in the United States, North Korea shooting missiles into Japan, Israel and Iran getting into a hassle, something like that. If something like that would have happened during that time, it would have been over, done, finished. I don't know how else to say it. What does that mean, over? Well, what it means is you make a phone call to your bank and there's no answer. That's what it means. Or you make a phone call to your credit card company and there's no answer. That's what it means. Okay, we came that close. In Belize, we have a law, and the law stipulates that all banks must have a minimum liquidity of 24%, the highest in the world. There's not a nation in the world that has a higher liquidity requirement than Belize. We at our bank, and most banks in Belize, carry a liquidity of at around 34%, somewhere in there, okay? But the requirement is 24%. So a quarter out of every dollar inside a Belizean bank must be liquid. Tough to run a bank that way, and yet we all do quite well. So often people ask me, so how did you do in 2008? Well, it didn't phase us. How can it? With a 24% buffer? You have to be a complete idiot to break a bank in Belize with a 24% buffer. But the government stipulates if you ever enter that 24% buffer, we have the right to ask for the keys to the bank. They close you down, the music is over. Okay? So that's why we have very healthy banks in Belize. Often people ask me at seminars, well, how safe is my money there? I think you just got the answer. Okay? So there you are. Bank secrecy and liquidity makes countries stick out. Those two, okay, make just a handful of those nations stick out. How much money do you need to open a bank account in Belize? With us, $500 and you're in. I am saying that because there are plenty of nations out there. Their banks have very high minimums. The bank I started with 33 years ago in Zurich, Switzerland, had a minimum of $3 million. Folks, not everybody has $3 million kicking around at home to go to Switzerland. So with us, it's $500 and you're in. That's it. Okay? It's a very low minimum. So by now, you probably discovered that Belize is a very low-key banking nation. You think Belize, do you think of banking? Is that the first thing that pops into your head? I don't think so. What comes to your mind? Diving. Exactly. Snorkeling, diving, fishing, sailing. And if you're not into that, well then you probably run around in the jungle up and down the Maya ruins, looking at panthers, jaguars, toucans, parrots, and all that stuff. And if you're not into that, well, you probably find yourself sitting on a bar stool on the beach, okay? Tourism, that comes to your mind. It's the first thing that comes to your mind. Banking, I don't think so. You think of Switzerland, what do you think of? First of all, the mountains, then snow, skiing, cheese, watches. Yes, and if you think hard enough, banking will come to your mind. All I'm saying is, we do not advertise ourselves silly, like the Swiss used to for the last 100 years, and still do. We don't do that. It's very low-key. Doesn't mean that every crook and his dog can open a bank account in Belize. When you open a bank account there, we need to know stuff. I said it earlier on. There are no more numbered accounts. So what do we need to know? Well, obviously your name, your address, a street address, not some P.O. box. And then we're going to ask you a question. It's going to go like this. How did you make the money that's coming to us? Why do we ask this question? Because we are nosy people? No, we're not nosy people, but you would appreciate this. All you need as a bank, all you need is one bad apple. One bad apple, and you dig yourself out for the next 5 years. I experienced it once in 33 years. It was misery. Just because we picked up that one bad apple. It was horrible. I smoked 60 cigarettes a day, no sleep, pictured myself sitting in jail, rotting away, and all that nonsense. I'd rather cut my thumbs off than go through that again. So, we will ask you this question, and we don't need a 17-page essay. Just tell us how you made the freaking money. No more. Well, savings. Okay, fine. Investments. Okay, good. Sold a piece of land, sold a condo. I happen to work for a living. Good for you. Tell us something. Tell us something so we can fill in the blank on the application form so when the auditors come, they see something in that space and they go away. Okay, so that's how that works. How do you open a bank account? What do you do? I left in front of you, I left these little papers. You should see them in front of your nose. You can win a trip, free trip to Belize. Complete that form and pass them to the center aisle. At the end of my speech, we're going to have a draw. 2 people will be drawn. That's one thing. The other thing, since you put your name, address, phone number on that piece of paper, we can send information to you. Okay? We will not hound you to death to open a bank account there. We send the information to you, and after that, you will never hear from us again unless you contact us. Okay? Unless you want to open a bank account. We will not hound you to death to open a bank account there. We're not marketeers. We are bankers. Boring, stodgy bankers. Okay? That's what we are. So that's how that works. Once you complete the application form, send it to us, send copies of the various documents we need, send it to us, and we open the account for you. At that time, we will appoint an account manager to your account that is an English-speaking person. Often people ask me, well, what language do they speak there? They speak English. They speak the snotty English, the English, the English that makes North Americans feel this high. They sound terribly sophisticated, but whatever. Those are the people you deal with. How do you deal with them? Phone, fax, email. There's nothing outlandish here, okay? Phone, fax, email. That's how you deal with us. And it's easy to deal with us because we are on mountain time. So that makes it easy. If your banker was sitting in Europe or Asia, well, that could complicate things a little bit. Okay, so there you are. Types of accounts. First of all, are there any Canadians in the room? There's still one here. Okay, I'm going to have to deal with the Canadians first. They're always the troublemakers. This is negative stuff. I run around a lot in Canada, going to seminars, speaking at seminars, and I often meet speakers there and presenters there, and they try to tell Canadians how to get their RRSP. For the Americans, what is an RRSP? It's an IRA, the Canadian version of an IRA. How to get RRSPs out of the country without a paper trail. If you get caught, you will end up inside an orange suit, so don't do it. Okay, that was a thing for the Canadians. All right, types of accounts for Americans and Canadians. First of all, the personal account in your name or many names. You can have a dozen names on the account. You can have the entire family on there with signature authority, okay? So it works the same way as anywhere else. Joint account, if you wish, that's fine. That's all fine. Second one for Americans and Canadians, the structure account. What is a structure? A structure is something you have formed for you offshore, generally by a lawyer or a senior trust officer. And what would that be? It would be a trust, a company, a foundation, a self-directed life insurance, something like that. I mean, there are hundreds of those things out there, but the ones I just mentioned are the more common ones. And then that structure opens the bank account. Why would you do this? I've said this for 30 years. Whenever you go offshore with anything, it doesn't matter what it is. Money, piece of land, condo, your yacht, whatever, not in your name. Never in your name. Always in something else's name. Trust, company, foundation, something like that. Why? Well, we heard it already this morning. Lawsuits. That's it. Need I say any more? You folks are Americans. You know what's going on here. Okay? So it's always the lawsuit that hangs over your head. So always in something else's name. Okay? The third one, for Americans only, IRAs. If you wish to transfer your IRA offshore, well then do so. More and more people fear that the IRAs will be nationalized. I heard this the first time 30 years ago right here in Las Vegas. At that time, I was laughing my head off. I thought this is just silly. Why would that ever happen? Well, I'm not laughing anymore. Okay? It may just happen. And if you fear that that's going to happen, well, then transfer it offshore. We can help you with that. There are also specialists out there that can do that for you. And then you've got your IRA offshore. Okay? So that works very well. Once your money is there, what can you do with your money? I don't know where to start. Anything you want. Whatever you want to do. I know this sounds silly, but that's the way it is. Now, can you say that here in the States? No, you can't. I'll give you one simple example, mutual funds. There are 70,000 mutual funds out there in the big wide world. 10,000 are worth looking at, the rest is garbage. Out of the 10,000, you can buy 1/3. So what happens to the others? Well, you can't buy them. They're not registered here, they can't market here, they can't sell here. End of story. And we're only talking about mutual funds. They are the stocks, the bonds, and all their byproducts. With us, you can buy whatever you want. If you want something completely exotic out of Sri Lanka, we can buy it for you. The latest hot ticket out there is some mining firm out of Oman. Most people don't even know where Oman is. But they need to buy that mining company out of Oman. So we get these phone calls from our clients, can you buy this stuff? Yes, we can. Well, how come? I talk to my broker in the States or in Canada, and they tell me they can't buy this stuff. Well, I know why. The stuff isn't registered here. They can't market here. They can't sell here. End of story. So whatever comes to your mind, whatever you want to buy, we can buy for you in the form of securities. The second one, obviously, currencies. If you wish to get into different currencies, well, then do so. You can do that through us. If you feel that the US dollar is going down the toilet, well, then fine. Get into different currencies or a basket of currencies. Okay? You can do that in the form of savings accounts and CDs. If you are a midnight gardener and you like precious metals, I'm talking about the real stuff, coins, bullions, bars, and gold, silver, platinum, palladium. We can buy those things for you. We store them for you until you tell us to sell them. So that works well. We offer credit cards. You can use them anywhere in the world, wherever you go. Also at ATM machines. You get a PIN code and you use it at ATM machines. Wherever you are in the world, you get local cash out of the machine. So that works well. Loans, mortgages, we issue those, obviously. Like any other bank, it is the backbone of any banking operation. Well, that's how banking started, right, with the money lenders. I need to say a few more things about loans and mortgages. We issue loans and mortgages for projects in our region. What is our region? Our region is Central America. So that is Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama. If you are purchasing or going to purchase something there, like a piece of land on the beach in Costa Rica, a condo in Panama City, a condo in Belize, we can help you with that. Okay? Now, if you came to us and said, hey, look, I need some money, I want to put up a strip mall in San Francisco, California, no, obviously not. What do we know about California? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But we do understand our region very well, those 7 countries. Okay? So we can help you with that. We see a lot of people coming our way. They're there for 3 months a year, 6 months a year, some of them full time. They have a wonderful time. Mainly boomers. You walk down the street in the evening, anywhere in Belize, nice and warm outside, the windows are open. You hear music coming out of the open windows. What do you hear? Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, the stuff the boomers used to listen to during the 60s when they had hair down to here and stoned every day. And then they became extremely boring people. They did a complete 180, didn't we? Boy, did we ever become boring. We are some of the most boring people that ever walked the face of the earth. All we did was work, 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 work. Ever since the mid-'70s, we work, work, work. Once we cut our hair off and stopped smoking the funny stuff, all we did was work, 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 and work more. And we're still working like fools. Okay? Extremely boring. And now they're coming to retirement age, and they're looking for a place in the sun. And they come to our area, where it's beautiful. It's cheap, it's fairly safe, palm trees, beaches, absolutely wonderful. And those folks that go there, they have a wonderful time. And of course, their hair goes down to here again, and they smoke the funny stuff. Anyway, that's loans and mortgages. We form trusts, we form companies for you through our sister company with the help of Joel Nagel, who spoke up here this morning. Statements, we issue statements once a month in two forms, paper or electronically. If you don't want to receive anything, say so. More and more people tell us, whatever you do, don't send a thing to me. Okay, fine, whatever. So we just sit there and wait for the clients to contact us then, in that case. Okay? Brings me now to one of our clients. He lives in Seattle. I have a home in Vancouver, Canada. I'm not there a lot because I travel so much. But whenever I'm there, he calls me twice a year, and this is how it goes. Peter, the usual? All right. The usual means I climb in a car, I drive south across the border, down the highway towards Seattle, take the Bellevue turnoff, pull into the parking lot at the Shell station, and there he is waiting for me in his Chrysler. I pull up right next to him. I look over. He goes like this. I go like this. I get out of the car, I get into his car, and we do business. Sounds like a hooker? I feel like one. So what do? We go through the statements. He's got them there, or I have them with me. We go through the statements. We cover each and every entry on the statement. We discuss his investments. When we're done doing that, we're talking about Obama, and then we talk about the Republicans, and then we talk about the Tea Party, and when we're done doing that, we talk about Greece, how horrible they're doing, and Italy and Berlusconi, and Spain, the real estate fiasco there, Portugal, the bond fiasco there, how wonderful a recovery the Irish are making right now, and once we're done solving all the problems in the world, I climb back in the car and I go back home. Now, if you like that, you mention the parking lot to me, I will be there. Okay, that's statements. Internet banking, do we have that? Yes, we do. Involves a 5 to 7 minute phone call. While you're on the phone, we set you up, and then you do your internet banking. People love it. Do you have to go to Belize at all to set this up or to maintain this whole thing? No, you don't. Now, I'm saying this because there are plenty of nations, and they stipulate that if you want to deal with one of their institutions, you better be in their office when you sign on a dotted line. Panama, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Jersey. Those are just a few. Okay? With us, that's not necessary. I recommend you go there. It's a wonderful place to go to. Picture this. I mean, you're going for a swim in the morning in the ocean or in a swimming pool. At noon, you climb out of the water, you waddle across the street, dripping wet, straight into the bank, go up to the 3rd floor. That's where we're located, dripping wet. You sit down, you do your banking in your bathing suit. How does that sound? To me, that sounds quite nice. Okay, don't worry, we clean up after you. So that's Belize. But what I'm saying here is, it is not a regulation set by the Belizean government that you have to be there when you sign on the dotted line. Okay, it's not necessary. Key Bank, 2nd largest bank in Belize. It's been around for 18 years, started out as a mortgage company. Later on, it got into banking business, and it became a bank. That happens often with mortgage companies. Our growth rate in deposits over the last 7 years on an annual basis 97%. Now, for those of you who don't know what this means, that's very good. That's good in any business. Probably, a lot of you probably think right now, well, what in the world are they doing? They must be doing risky stuff. No, we're not doing risky stuff. I said it earlier on, when it comes to loans and mortgages, we stick to the stuff that we understand. When it comes to loans and mortgages, it's a 50-50 split. Client comes up with 50% of the money, we give him the other 50%. No exceptions made. That's how it works. That's the law of the land. Can you imagine if that would have been the situation in 2008, right here in this country? Let's not go there, okay? We all start crying. So, that's how that works. So where does the growth come from? From you folks. That's where the growth comes from, Americans and Canadians. Now, you heard a few people say this morning that a lot of banks out there don't want to see Americans anymore. Yes, that's right. They don't want to see your face anymore, especially Swiss banks. They have nothing against you. They have something against your government. Okay? So, with us, it's not that drastic. 50% of our clients are Americans. The other 50% are Canadians. So we like Americans and Canadians. Okay? We like dealing with you. Yeah, sure, you're goofy people, oversized running shoes and cowboy hats and all this stuff. That's okay. Everybody is a little bit goofy. Doesn't matter where you go in the world. That's fine. We can hear you from 3 blocks away. So anyway, that's Caye Bank. Okay, it's a very successful bank, been around for a long time. An 18-year-old bank in Belize is an ancient bank. It's a young country, young people, lots of little kids running around. They're not begging, they're being friendly. They don't need to beg. So an 18-year-old bank is an ancient bank there. Okay, I'm almost done. A few loose ends, and these loose ends don't hang together whatsoever. But I feel I need to mention them anyway, simply because they're typical questions. They always pop up at seminars, so let's deal with them right away. What happens if a bank fails in Belize? Is everything gone? You lost everything? No. The stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, and the precious metals flow straight back to you. Why? Because they're not part of the bank's balance sheet. We have to use the European banking accounting system. That's the law of the land. And that means we cannot include those client holdings in our balance sheet. Okay, so bank fails, trustee will be appointed, trustee contacts you and says, look, bank failed, what do you want us to do with your holdings? You tell them and you're done. Nothing is gone, okay? Another thing that I'd like to mention here is what happens if a client passes away? Well, I know he'll be buried, but what happens to the money? Okay, there are 3 scenarios. 1, if you have a joint account, the surviving bank account holders must contact us and tell us that the other one passed away, or you passed away. What do we need? We need a copy of the death certificate, and that allows us to take the name off the account. Second scenario, if you named beneficiaries, well, then the beneficiaries must contact us and tell us they passed away. What do we need? Again, a copy of a death certificate, a copy of the beneficiary's ID. They sent that to us. We have 7 days to write the account over into the beneficiary's name. Now it's their money. They can do anything they want to do. Close the account, leave it there, whatever. It's their money. No taxation and no administrative fee. And the third one, I've only seen this one 3-4 times during my career. It may happen again. Let's say you open an account there, and the only 2 parties that are aware of this account are you and us, and now you die. The room is full of Americans. You don't like the word die. You go to room temperature. Okay. Okay, so what happens? If you look at this scenario here now, you're gone, but we're still here, and the money is at our bank. Dormant account, right? Isn't that a dormant account? Okay, so what happens with most dormant accounts in most countries? After a while, a few years, I don't know, 10, 15, whatever it is, government comes along and steals the money, right? Isn't that how it works? Yes. Does that work the same way in Belize? No, it does not. Go to page 2 of the banking law, 2nd paragraph, it says, a bank account must be kept operational until someone claims it. What does that mean? Well, if in 100 years from now someone walks into the bank and says, hey, look, one of my ancestors had some money here, and here's proof that there's a connection, it's probably his money. All I'm saying is the government is not permitted to grab the money. Now, isn't that refreshing? I think it is. Okay. I have a few more, but I'm out of time. Well, about one more thing. I think that's important. Often people ask me, and I had this question already twice this morning from some of you out in the hallway, what is the difference amongst banks? Yeah, there is a difference, but not that huge. When it comes to banking, there is very little difference. We all do the same stuff. It's boring stuff. It's banking. How exciting can that be? Okay? But when it comes to the execution of the work, there is a difference, folks. And I discovered over the last 30 years there are two main camps in offshore banking. One is European banks, the other one is Caribbean banks. Smaller pockets all over the world, but those are the two main ones. What's the difference between those two? Banking, nothing. When it comes to the execution of the work, Caribbean banks are not as efficient as European or North American banks. Don't call me a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm telling you the way it is. I experienced it myself. I ran a bank in Tortola, British Virgin Islands, for quite some time. I became extremely inefficient. Why? Too hot there. Extremely hot there and very humid. Even the local folks suffer under all that heat. And now you're going to tell me, yeah, but they have air conditioning there, don't they? Yes, they do. It only works an hour and a half a day, and then they have a power outage, and the sweat starts to run. And you cannot concentrate on anything, and you make mistakes. And after a while, the clients get sick and tired of all those mistakes, close the account and move it. Where to? To Europe. What's in Europe? Two major camps, Germanic and Anglo-Saxon. What is the difference? Banking, nothing. When it comes to the execution of the work, the Brits are not as efficient as the Germans. Period. That's the way it is. I know it. I worked on both sides for years. So what are the English good in? They're fantastic negotiators, the best negotiators in the world. And I don't need to tell you this. You live in a multicultural society. You know that the English talk all day long and say absolutely nothing. Okay? That's how they function. Okay? I know it. I worked right next to them for years in the London office. So, how do you as a client profit from something like that? You can negotiate. With Brits or the English mind, you can negotiate. A little higher interest rate on your CD, a little lower fee. Can you get that out of a Germanic banker? Absolutely not. Listen, this is the interest rate. You will live with it. There's the door. Leave. And then they click their heels. Okay? That's how that works. Okay? Where do we fit in Belize? Well, we are pocket. I mentioned the pocket already. Okay? So, if you look at this situation, 90% of all financial industry employees in Belize were trained in the States, a highly efficient country. And then they go back home. 2-3 years later, they go back home, back to paradise, because it's nice there. So, and it's home. That's one thing. The other thing, they were raised by the Brits. And so they almost expect you to negotiate. You kill two birds with one stone. You get the efficiency and you can negotiate. Look around the world, in the offshore world, offshore banking world, and try and find something like that. It's hard to find. We have it. All right, that's it. I'm done. If you want to have some more information on all this, fill out the form, give it to me, or pass them to the center. We have to draw quickly. It doesn't take long. It only takes 1 minute. I do not have handouts here. I cannot bring handouts to this country. Foreign banker standing on foreign soil. If I get caught with handouts here, I won't see the sun for the next 20 years. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.